Let's go ahead and take a look at the factors that are going to affect our budget line. And there's really only two things that are going to change how our budget line is going to look like. That's going to be changes in the price of either one of these goods or changes in our income. So by changing either one of these variables, it is going to change how the budget line is going to look like. So we want to be a little bit careful with how the budget line is going to change and the terminology behind it, because it is going to be two very different things. So we do really want to be careful about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the factors that affect the budget line. So factors that affect the budget line. And we'll do three examples here. So factors that affect the budget line. The first factor is going to be changes in the price of a good. Changes in price of good. Price of good. So what happens if we increase or decrease the price of one of these particular goods? How exactly is that going to sort of change our budget line? So suppose that the price of one of these goods is going to fall. So remember, we're working with hours of wall climbing and quantity of pizza. So suppose that the price of wall climbing falls. So price of wall climbing falls to $10. So there's a 50% price reduction. It goes from $20 down to $10. And so here we have price decreasing in this example. So what does this mean for you as a consumer? It means that you can intuitively purchase more hours of wall climbing. So hours of wall climbing have gotten cheaper. You still have the same amount of income. So you can intuitively purchase more of this good. So you can purchase more of this good. More of this good. With this in mind, what is the maximum amount of wall climbing hours you can buy now? Before, we only had 2.5, but now, because the price has essentially halved here, you can purchase more, you can purchase double the maximum amount of hours of wall climbing here. So once again, we want to go ahead and do the same exact technique that we did previously to plot our budget line by taking a look at the most extreme values, the points on the axes. What happens if we use up all of our income on one particular good? Remember, we had an income of $50, so income is still equal to $50. And we want to go ahead and take a look at pizza, the quantity of pizza and quantity of wall climbing when we spend all of our money on each respective good. So in this instance, the price of pizza is still constant at $10. So therefore, the maximum amount of pizza we can consume is going to be 5 pizzas. So here, pizza equals to 5. Nothing new in this regard. However, the price of wall climbing, it fell to $10. So therefore, that also tells us that, hey, the quantity of wall climbing that we can consume now, the maximum amount, is also equal to 5. So when we plot these points on the Cartesian plane, we're going to notice a rotation of our budget line. So take a look at this. The budget line is going to pivot outwards, making many more combinations affordable. So the budget line pivots or rotates around the good whose price has actually changed. Before, we were stuck at 2.5. The maximum amount of hours of wall climbing we can purchase is 2.5. But because wall climbing has gotten cheaper, we can now purchase 5. So therefore, our budget line has pivoted or rotated outwards. And we want to be very careful with that terminology. Anytime the price of a good is going to change, we notice that our budget line is going to pivot. So here, the budget line pivots outwards. So pivots or rotates, they mean the same thing for us in this instance. So here, price of a good is going to decrease. The budget line is going to pivot outward. Suppose we change this example up just a little bit, and suppose that now the price of a pizza is going to increase instead. So instead of having a price decrease, we have the price of pizza increasing instead. And what do you think is going to happen in this instance? So here, price of pizza increases to $12.50. Increases to $12.50. So here, you're moving in the opposite case, price is increasing. So if the price of pizza increases, what does that tell you? You're going to be able to purchase less of this good. So we'll be able to purchase less of this good. Less of this good. So pizza has gotten more expensive. We're still making your income constant at $50. So therefore, you're going to be able to buy less pizza. You're very sad in this instance. Once again, to see exactly what our budget line is going to do, we take a look at the income equals to $50. The price of pizza now has gone up. to $12.50. So what is the maximum amount of pizza you can consume if the price of pizza has increased $2.50 to $12.50? The maximum amount of pizza you can consume, given your income of $50, is now only 4. So here, maximum amount is 4. You're going to plot that on the Cartesian plane. So suppose that we keep the price of wall climbing at the lower price of $10, so nothing's going to change in regards to this. So price of wall climbing equals to $10. The maximum amount of hours of wall climbing we can consume is equal to 5. So what exactly do you think is going to happen to our budget line in this scenario? It's just going to be the opposite. The budget line is going to go ahead and pivot or rotate inwards. So once again, when we have a change in the price, anytime that happens, we have a pivot or rotation of the budget line. And here, because the price increased, we notice that it's going to reduce consumption choices. So now no longer are we going to be able to purchase the same amount in combination of both of these goods. Here, it pivots around the good whose price has actually changed. So once again, in order to wrap up this sort of example, we notice that the budget line pivots inwards. So once again, be very, very careful about the terminology right here. It's a pivot or rotation. So it's exactly just like the Friends episode where they're trying to move the sofa up the stairs. It's pivoting. So anytime the price of a good is going to change, you pivot. The second variable that can change within our equation, our budget line equation, and that's going to change the shape of our budget line, is going to be income changes. So here, before we had the changes in the price of good, the second one that we can go ahead and take a look at is going to be income changes. So we'll put it down here. We have variable number 2, income changes. So what exactly happens when your income increases or decreases? That's going to tell us that, hey, you can go ahead and purchase more of both of these goods or less of both of these goods. So suppose that I give you $10 extra in this particular example. So income increases to $60. So now you're even happier. You're given a raise. That tells us that you can purchase more in combination of both of these particular goods. So suppose that we go back to the previous examples with the price of pizza equal to $10, price of wall climbing equal to $20. So here, original prices for both of these goods. So price of pizza equals to $10. What's the maximum amount of pizza you can consume? And the maximum amount of pizza you can consume is now 6 slices, and the price of wall climbing is equal to $20. What's the maximum amount of hours of wall climbing you can consume? You can consume 3 hours of wall climbing now instead of the regular 2.5. So when we go ahead and plot these points into the Cartesian plane, you notice that, boom, it's going to shift outwards. It's going to be a parallel shift outwards. So in this instance, anytime your income is going to increase, you notice that the budget line is going to shift outwards in the same exact sort of length, same exact sort of ratio, but now it's going to shift parallel outwards in this instance. So once again, notice the difference in the terminology that we had compared to the changes in prices. Here, the budget line shifts parallel outwards. So here the key word is going to be shifts. And of course, what happens in the opposite case, suppose I take away money from you, you no longer have $50, you have $40. That's going to tell us that you're going to shift the budget line inwards, which reduces the combination of both of these goods that you can actually consume. So in this instance, we want to be very careful about which good or which sort of variable we are affecting. If we have a change in the price, it's going to be a pivot or rotation of our budget line. But if we change your income, it's going to be a shift of the entire budget line outwards or inwards. So sounds very similar once again, but they do mean two very different things in economics based on the graphs that we've sort of built up. Once again, take a look at the budget line, the factors that are going to be affecting the shape of our budget line, and we'll go ahead and turn our attention to see exactly what we are going to go ahead and try to maximize as consumers. The budget line is our constraint, very, very easy to take a look at. We need to go ahead and go a little bit more deeper into detail about utility or your satisfaction and happiness in this particular setup.